This 5-minute clinic is about parallel fifths and octaves and how to avoid writing them. Parallel fifths and octaves are when two voices move from a perfect fifth to another perfect fifth, or from a perfect octave or unison to another perfect octave or unison. In music of the periods we're studying, roughly the Baroque, Classical, and early Romantic periods, this kind of motion is always avoided. We are not talking about when a bass or melody is doubled at the octave to bring it out, but rather in situations where the composer is writing independent lines, like in our chorales. Here are a couple of tips. For each chord, look at the two notes that are doubled. Make sure they're not moving together to the same notes. Then, look at each pair of voices that are a perfect fifth apart, and make sure that they're not moving together to another perfect fifth. Let's look at some examples. In the progression on the left, note that in the 1/6, the doubled notes are the A in the tenor and the A in the soprano. As we move to the 4 chord in the key of A minor, we need to make sure those two don't move together. So the 4 chord is D, F, and A. If the soprano goes from A to F, the tenor stays where it is, and that leaves a D doubling the bass in the alto. Note, for example, that if we wanted to keep the A in the tenor and also keep the A in the soprano and move the alto up to F, that's not parallel octaves because the A staying on A and the A staying on A here are not moving. Parallel octaves are only forbidden in motion, not in repeating. Okay, so let's get back to this chord. There's a perfect fifth, A to E. Note that this stays while the alto voice moves, so we no longer have a perfect fifth between tenor and alto. So we're good there. In looking at the next chord, we'll go to tip number 2. If the roots and bass notes are a step apart, like when 4 goes to 5 or 1 goes to 2, take the upper voices down while the bass goes up. If one or both of these are in first inversion, this won't quite work, but watch the doubling and try for some contrary motion. Let's go back to our examples. So here, in the 4 chord, bass is going up to 5, and now I'm going to go down there, there, and there for the 5 chord. If I went up that way, and that way, I would have had parallel fifths and parallel octaves with the bass. So what do we do now when there's an inversion, like on the right? In a case like this, we try to take the soprano in contrary motion. The alto can follow, but now I'm in trouble because I can't go anywhere to the G sharp in the tenor without making a tritone. So what that means is that there has to be at least something in this progression that goes in similar motion. But the contrary motion here instead of 4 to 5 in the bass, we have 4 to 5 in the soprano, and it's the other 3 voices that go down. You need to look at the arrangement to see how that works. And finally, when filling in the alto and tenor voices, do both voices at the same time. If you do the alto first, then give the tenor the leftover note, it sometimes forms a parallel fifth with the bass. In this progression, for example, when 1 goes to 5, if we try to go and do the alto note first and choose the E instead of the G, then we look at the chord and we've got a C, another C, and an E, and we try to put a G in the chord. If we do that in the tenor, then we've got parallel fifths there. Instead, what we need to do is look at both the alto and tenor together, knowing we need an E and a G, and realizing that that configuration is the one that works. That's our 5-minute clinic today.